That morning, nobody in the first-class lounge had any idea that a man in a faded hoodie was about to decide the future of an entire airline to them. It was just another traveler killing time before boarding. To the airline, he was a booking code. To himself, he was the final exam they didn't know they were taking. The room smelled like polished wood and expensive perfume. Soft jazz hummed in the background while men in tailored suits compared stock portfolios and vacation homes. Crystal glasses clinked. Laptops glowed. Laughter floated above the marble tables like it belonged there, near the floor-to-ceiling window. A black man sat alone with a simple bottle of water and an old, worn backpack at his feet. His hoodie was washed out from too many cycles in a cheap machine. His jeans were plain. His sneakers didn't scream any designer's name. His boarding pass did. Though just not in ink anyone could see. His name was Marcus Reed, 42 years old. To the world of tech and finance, he was the CEO of Vertex Dynamics, a company quietly building the security systems that kept half the country's networks safe. On paper, Vertex Dynamics was about to sign a partnership worth $50 million a year with Horizon Airlines. A single signature from Marcus would lock it in a massive AI security and data platform that would send Horizon's stock soaring and give them a serious edge against their rivals. But the man in the hoodie was not here as Mr. Reed, CEO. He was here as M. Reed, nothing more. No private jet. No assistant. No name flagged in the system as VIP. He bought the ticket under a trimmed-down version of his name, used his personal email, and made sure no one at Horizon knew who was stepping into their world. He wanted to see them the way they were when they thought nobody important was watching. That was how he had climbed out of the neighborhoods people forget and up into the offices where they pretended prejudice didn't exist anymore. He knew better. It didn't vanish. It just learned how to hide in nicer suits. Across the lounge, a woman in a navy blazer glanced over him with the speed of someone scanning a menu and rejecting an item in 1 second. I swear. She muttered to the man sitting with her. They let anyone in here now. Her companion smirked without even looking in Marcus's direction. Probably wandered into the wrong section. Looks like he should be in the student line, not the Polaris lounge. Words didn't sting Marcus anymore. They floated past him like cold air. What mattered wasn't how they made him feel. What mattered was what they revealed. He took a slow breath, eyes resting on his tablet screen. On it glowed the draft contract with Horizon Airlines, projected stock bumps, forecasted profits, internal notes from legal under the signature line. Simple number stood out. $50 million. Yuri could tap once and change the direction of an airline. He could tap once and reward them, or he could wait, watch, and decide if they deserved that future at all. This wasn't just a business trip. This was an audit of their soul. A lounge attendant kept glancing over at him. Young, polished, trying to mask the small crease in her brow every time her eyes landed on that hoodie. Like something about him didn't belong in her idea of premium, Marcus noticed. He always noticed, from boardrooms to college classrooms. He had lived this exact scene 100 times. The quick judgment, the subtle distance. The way people relaxed around you only after they learned your title or bank balance. Today, he wanted the opposite. He wanted them to treat him as if he were nobody. Only then could he see who they really were. Outside the glass, a sleek Horizon Airlines jet was being pushed back from the gate. Silver and deep blue, tail cutting into the morning sky like a promise of smooth travel and better days. The airline had spent. Marcus was here to see if there was anything behind the paint. A lounge attendant approached, her smile perfectly trained. "Double quote, sir. Can I offer you some champagne?" Marcus looked up, his gaze steady but kind. "No, thank you. Water's fine." Her smile tightened a millimeter. It was quick, but he caught it. The tiny flicker of annoyance, as if refusing the fancy drink was somehow rude, as if people in hoodies should be grateful for any upgrade to their existence. Of course. "Sir," she said, and turned away, her posture polished. Her eyes colder than before. Marcus's heartbeat didn't change. He wasn't surprised. He checked the time. Boarding would begin soon. The flight number on his pass matched the one on the gate screen. The seat printed in small black letters, 1A, first row, first class. First impression, if Horizon had listened in the strategy meetings, they would have known. The way you treat the person whose name you don't recognize, he had told his own team once, is the clearest report card on your culture. He had pushed for one thing before signing any deal: test their people in the real world, not just on paper. Today's flight was that test. He closed the contract on his tablet and opened a different file, an internal note he had written to himself weeks ago. If Horizon fails the dignity test, walk away. No second chances. No explanations. Just walk. He stared at that line for a moment, then locked the screen, picked up his backpack, and stood. From somewhere behind him, he heard a low voice say, "Yep, there he goes." Probably realized he's in the wrong lounge. Marcus didn't turn. He didn't need to. He had heard versions of that line his entire life. He headed toward the gate, passing framed photos of smiling flight crews and taglines about caring for every passenger. The kind of phrases that sounded beautiful in marketing decks and meant nothing. If the people repeating them didn't believe in them, the gate area buzzed with the usual pre-boarding chaos. Business travelers on calls, families juggling strollers, couples scrolling through social media. On the screen above the agent's head, the words Horizon First, Elite flashed in bold. The agent glanced at his hoodie, then at his boarding pass. For a second, she hesitated. Then her eyes dropped to seat 1A, and she forced a smile. "Welcome aboard, mister." Reedy nodded. "Thank you." As she scanned the pass, Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. Whatever happened next would not just be a story he told in a meeting. It would be the moment he decided if Horizon deserved his signature, or his silence. The jet bridge hummed quietly beneath his feet as he walked toward the aircraft door. The smell shifted from polished lounge air to the familiar mix of jet fuel and recycled cabin scent. Inside, warm light spilled out from first class, soft and golden. Plush seats, thick carpeting, whispered greetings. It was designed to make rich people feel safe, special, touchable. Marcus took one slow breath. Somewhere up ahead, seat 1A was waiting for him. Somewhere up ahead, someone would decide what they saw when they looked at a black man in a hoodie sitting in that seat. A customer, a problem, or a test they didn't know they were taking. He stepped through the aircraft door with the quiet certainty of a man who already knew. By the time this plane landed, either Horizon Airlines would rise, or he would watch them fall, and it would all begin with whatever happened next in seat 1A. The first-class cabin smelled like money, trying to look casual, soft lighting, neutral tones. Seats so wide they felt like small living rooms. Horizon had done everything it could to make this space whisper, "You belong here," but only to the people it assumed did, at the front. Near the galley, Jenna Collins, lead flight attendant, flipped through the printed manifest like she was grading papers. 34, sharp, efficient. It's the kind of crew member who knew every regular by face and by favorite drink. Her eyes skimmed down the premium roster. She murmured names under her breath. Row 1. Hal V, seat to C. Read M. 1A. She paused. The crease between her brows sharpened. Read M, not a name she recognized. Not one of the usual executives, frequent flyers, or board members. Her gaze lifted as Marcus stepped in from the jet bridge. Hoodie, old backpack. Calm eyes. Jenna's brain didn't process his boarding group or seat number first. It processed the hoodie, the skin tone, the lack of visible status symbols. That can't be 1A, she thought, but she said nothing yet. "Welcome aboard," she told him, voice smooth, professional. "Straight ahead. First row on your left." He gave a small nod. "Thank you." Marcus walked down the aisle and stopped at seat 1A. Window seat. Extra legroom. Bigger screen. The unofficial throne of the cabin. He placed his backpack under the seat, slid into 1A, and let his shoulders relax into the leather. It felt like any other seat to him. But he knew it didn't feel that way to everyone. as he settled in. He saw the cabin the way his AI systems saw data patterns, signals, pressure points. He noticed the older man in 3D, watching him with open curiosity. The couple in 2A and 2B exchanging a quick glance. The quiet shifting of people deciding, do I think he belongs there or not? The boarding door stayed open for first class and elite rows. The steady stream of passengers slowed, then paused, and then the Storm walked on board. Victoria Hale hit the carpet like she owned it. Mid-40s, blonde hair styled to perfection, red designer handbag on her arm. Everyone around her knew, instantly, that this was a person used to getting her way. She didn't just move down the aisle. She occupied it. The kind of presence that expected doors to open before she reached them. Her husband, Daniel Hale, ran one of Horizon's biggest freight partners. Victoria didn't see a seat map when she flew Horizon. She saw territory. Her eyes went straight to the front row. Straight to 1A, and then they narrowed. Someone was already there. Someone not wearing a suit, not flashing a watch, not giving off the air of, I've sat in first class my whole life. A black man in a hoodie, backpack at his feet. Calm. Too calm. She stopped dead in the aisle. Excuse me, she said loud enough for everyone in rows 1 through 4 to hear. You're in my seat. Marcus opened his eyes and turned his head, face relaxed and polite. I think there's been a mix-up, he replied. My boarding pass says 1A. He held it up so she could see. Victoria didn't even glance at it. I always sit there, she snapped. The crew knows that. In her world, rules bent around her preference. In her world, reality adjusted to what she believed was normal. Jenna appeared at her side so fast, it was like she had been summoned. Ms. Hale, she said with her practiced, flattering smile. Is there an issue? Yes, Victoria replied, folding her arms. Someone is in my seat. Jenna turned to Marcus, and the sweetness in her voice grew thin and tight around the edges. Sir, may I see your boarding pass? Marcus handed it over without a word. She read it once. Then again, 1A, clear as day. Her jaw tinned. He had the seat. He had the right. But Victoria had the history. Jenna looked at Victoria, Ms. Hale. I'll just verify your Victoria let out a short, dismissive laugh. Jenna, you know, this is my seat every time. Just move him. Put him in 2A. It's the same thing. She didn't say this man. She said, him, like he was a problem to be rearranged, not a person who made a choice and paid for it. The cabin went quiet in that charged way. People pretend they're not listening while listening to every word. A few passengers glanced up, then quickly looked down. Not wanting to get involved, Jenna's smile returned. But her eyes had already picked a side. Sir, she said, lowering her voice as if asking for a favor, to help us get out on time, would you mind switching to 2A? It's just 1 row back, same experience. Marcus met her eyes. There was no anger there, no panic, just a steady, tired sort of clarity. I'd prefer to sit in the seat I paid for, he replied. 1A. Victoria did not like that answer. He's holding up the flight, she said, her voice rising. This is ridiculous. Call the captain, please. It was the card she always played. Escalate. Apply pressure. When Jenna hesitated, not because she doubted Victoria, but because she knew what calling the captain meant. Once he stepped in, his word became the law inside that metal tube. Her loyalty didn't lean toward what was right. It leaned toward whoever held the most power, at least in her mind. I'll get Captain Hart, she said, already turning toward the cockpit. Marcus watched her go. He could have argued. He could have pulled out his phone, his company credentials, his contacts at Horizon's corporate office. He did none of that. Instead, he thought, this is the moment that tells me everything I need to know. Less than a minute later, Captain Douglas's Hart stepped out of the cockpit. Late 50s, gray hair, posture straight, voice carrying the authority of thousands of flight hours. He didn't look at Marcus first. He looked at Victoria. Ms. Hale, he said, nodding. What seems to be the problem? She pointed at Marcus like someone pointing at luggage that ended up in the wrong overhead bin. That man is in my seat. I always sit in 1A. Your team knows that. Captain Hart finally turned toward Marcus. He didn't offer a greeting. He didn't ask what happened, sir, he said, clipped and cool. Due to internal procedures for VIP passengers, I'm going to ask you to move to seat 2A. Marcus's voice stayed calm. What procedure? He asked. My boarding pass is for 1A. I paid for 1A. Hart's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by someone who didn't look like the people who normally challenged him. If you don't cooperate, he said, we may have to ask you to leave the aircraft. The words dropped into the cabin like a lead weight. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. A man who had done nothing wrong, who had followed every rule, paid for his ticket, boarded on time, was now being threatened with removal, not because of a policy, but because someone richer, louder, and whiter wanted his seat. Marcus let the silence hang for a second, not to make a scene. To absorb the truth, they had decided his worth based on what he wore and what he looked like. Everything else was background noise. Slowly, he unbuckled his seatbelt. He stood, picked up his backpack, and stepped into the aisle. I'll move, he said quietly. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He walked to seat 2A and sat down. The cabin seemed to exhale. Tension replaced with smug relief. Victoria slid into 1A with a satisfied smile, like a queen reclaiming a stolen crown. Jenna poured her champagne with a little extra flourish, convinced she had handled the issue. Captain Hart returned to the cockpit, certain he had protected the airline's image. But Marcus knew what they had really protected. Their comfort. Their hierarchy. Their illusion of who deserved to sit where. He fastened his seatbelt into leaned back, and let his hand rest on his backpack. They had no idea who he was. They had no idea what decision he had just made, because while they were busy defending seat 1A, they had just lost something worth far more than a chair by a window. He pulled out his tablet and unlocked it. The Horizon partnership numbers glowed on the screen. 50 million a year? Projected stock gain? Security upgrades. He opened an encrypted chat window. At the top, a familiar name. Carla Lopez. Coup. Vertex Dynamics. His fingers moved over the keyboard with calm certainty. Carla, terminate all partnership negotiations with Horizon Airlines. Effective immediately. He hit send. A few seconds later, her reply appeared. Reason? Marcus glanced toward the front of the cabin, past Victoria's raised glass, past Jenna's practiced smile, past the closed cockpit door that hid Captain Hart. He typed 3 words. Discrimination. Cultural misfit. Then, after a brief pause, he added, shift priority to Skyrise Air. If their CEO can hop on a call within an hour of landing, they get the contract. No negotiation. He sent it, no drama. No exclamation marks. Just decisions. While the rest of first class relaxed into their belief that order had been restored, Marcus had already erased Horizon's biggest deal from existence. The engine started to hum louder as the plane pushed back from the gate. Up front, Victoria Hale reclined, pleased with herself. Jenna mentally checked off resolved cabin conflict. ... Hart called for final checks. None of them understood the size of what had just slipped. Through their fingers, Marcus looked out the window from 2A as the aircraft rolled toward the runway. Horizon had just finished its test. They hadn't even known they were being graded, and they had failed. Badly. Once the aircraft leveled off above the clouds, first class fell into that strange, heavy quiet where anything loud feels forbidden, and every small sound seems amplified. Silverware clinked softly. Seat motors hummed. Ice dropped into glasses with tiny eye. Bright cracks. In seat 1A, Victoria Hale stretched out, sipping her champagne like a ruler who had just resecured her throne. In seat 2A, just one row behind her, Marcus Reed turned the cabin into something else entirely, a remote control room where an airline's future was being rewritten, line by line, on his tablet. The encrypted chat with Carla Lopez, coup of Vertex Dynamics, stayed open. Below his last message, More notifications rolled in. Understood. Legal looping in now. Drafting formal termination letter to Horizon. Routing contract package to Skyrise Air. Every line was crisp, emotionless, final. Marcus scrolled to another window, a chart full of projections for Horizon. Their profit curves, their risk assessments, all based on one assumption: this deal goes through. He studied it for a moment. Once these numbers had felt exciting. Now they felt like a bad bet he was relieved to walk away from. He didn't rage. He didn't stew. He just moved on. Up front, Victoria was laughing. Honestly. She said to no one in particular, voice just loud enough to carry. If you're going to sit in first class, at least look like you belong here. A mild chuckle came from somewhere in row 3. Jenna Collins, standing near the galley, gave a tight, approving smile. Thank you again for your patience, Ms. Hale, Jenna said. We always do our best for our top clients. Marcus heard every word. Each one slid into place like evidence in a file he would never show a court. Only his conscience. He wasn't thinking about his own ego anymore. That died years ago in rooms where people mispronounced his name, doubted his numbers, underestimated his ideas until they saw his results. He was thinking about something else. If this is how they treat someone in 1A when they think he's nobody, what happens to people with less money, less status, less power? The answer was simple. He didn't want Vertex anywhere near that kind of culture. A notification pinged again on his tablet. LEGAL termination ready. Subject: immediate cancellation of strategic partnership discussions with Horizon Airlines. He read the summary. The stated reason was direct: breach of ethical alignment. Discriminatory passenger handling incident observed by Vertex CEO on Flight 482. Marcus scanned it, nodded once, and hit approve. That was the digital equivalent of pulling a plug from a wall. On Horizon's end, the lights were about to start flickering. He switched apps. Email market alerts. Internal memos. He typed another short message to Carla. Also, prep talking points. If this becomes public, we frame it about values, not revenge. She replied almost instantly. Already on it. And Skyrise's CEO, Adam Kwan, is ready for a call as soon as you land. Marcus smiled faintly. Professional, efficient, clear. Somewhere behind him. In seat 6C, in business class, another kind of storm was brewing. Ethan Miles, a tech journalist with a large following and a nose for scandal, replayed a video on his phone. He had filmed the entire exchange in first class earlier, Captain Hart leaning over. The threat to remove Marcus, Victoria's impatient gestures. Marcus being told to move despite having the right seat. Ethan didn't know who Marcus was. He didn't care. What he cared about was this: an airline siding with a loud VIP. Over a passenger who had done nothing wrong, he rewound the part where Captain Hart said, "If you don't cooperate, we may have to ask you to leave the aircraft." Then he hit pause. Then record again, this time layering text over the clip. Horizon Airlines just kicked a guy out of 1A for a more important passenger. This is why people don't trust airlines. No signal up here, he muttered. But once we hit the ground, this is going everywhere. He saved the draft post. Ready to upload the moment the plane's wheels touched the runway and the network bars. Returned back at Vertex Dynamics headquarters. Thousands of miles away, the ripple effect had already begun. The communications team received a high-priority tag, potential public story. Prepare values-based statement in case incident becomes viral. Legal department pushed Horizon's folder into the terminated stack and pulled Skyrise Air's file into priority. In one of the strategy rooms, someone updated a massive partnership roadmap. Horizon's logo disappeared. Skyrise's emblem slid into its place. All of that from a quiet decision made in C2A, on the aircraft. The lunch service began. "Sir, would you like beef or pasta?" The other flight attendant asked Marcus. "Just the salad, thanks," he replied. She gave a quick nod. She didn't recognize him, didn't know about the emails flying above the clouds on his behalf. Didn't realize her employer's financial future had just shifted mid-dash flight. Marcus took a bite, then set his fork down. listening to the captain's smooth voice come through the speakers for a routine update. Ladies and gentlemen, we're cruising at 34,000 feet. Estimated arrival time is right on schedule. On schedule. That phrase rolled around inside Marcus's mind for a moment. Horizon thought everything was still on schedule. They thought they were on track for their biggest year. They thought their main task today was getting a few planes in and out on time. They had no idea they'd already derailed themselves. Time passed. Clouds drifted below. Marcus closed his eyes, but his mind didn't rest. He drifted back to memories of his first job, interviews being told he wasn't a cultural fit, when everyone in the room looked nothing like him. To the investor who once said, "You don't exactly look like the face of a billion-dollar company." To the conference, where a staff member had tried to redirect him to the service entrance because he assumed Marcus was part of the catering team, not the keynote speaker. He had carried every one of those moments with him, not as wounds, but as reminders of one rule: judge people by how they treat the ones they think have nothing to offer them. By that rule, Horizon had just failed harder than any airline could afford to fail in his world. Chimney sounded overhead. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've begun our initial descent into Chicago. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Marcus opened his eyes, locked his tablet, and slid it into his bag. From 1A, he heard Victoria whisper to Jenna, "I hope they upgraded my car at the gate." "I don't have time to deal with delays today." Marcus almost laughed. She had no idea what kind of delay she had just created. Not for herself. For the airline she swore was her favorite. The city appeared beneath the clouds. Buildings rising up like glass and steel, reminders that everything humans build can also fall. The wheels hit the runway with a soft, controlled thud. A few passengers clapped. Someone near the back muttered, "Still got it, Captain." As the plane taxied to the gate, phones chimed to life one after another. In business class, Ethan Miles got full signal. He opened his social app, tapped upload, and watched the progress bar jump. 10%, 30%, 100% posted. He added a caption while the aisle seat passengers started, buckling early, fresh off this Horizon flight. They forced a paying first-class passenger to give up 1A for a loud VIP. All caught on camera. "You tell me if this looks right?" Notifications started stacking up before he even stood. Like comment, share. The algorithm had smelled blood. Up front. Marcus stayed seated, letting the aisle crowd thin out. He didn't rush. He never did. When he finally stood, slinging his old backpack over his shoulder again, something inside him felt settled. Not satisfied. Not angry. Just finished. The test was over. The grade was final. He stepped off the plane into the jet bridge. The cool airport air hit his face. Ahead, the Terminal B sled, but one part of Gate C-14 was hours away from exploding into panic. Horizon's people just didn't know it yet. Not until they checked their emails. Not until they saw the termination notice. Not until someone in corporate opened Ethan's video and recognized, with horror, exactly who the silent man in the hoodie had been. Marcus walked toward the exit signs with steady steps. Behind him, an airline's countdown had already started. The moment the aircraft door opened, the crowd spilled into the jet bridge like a flood finally released. People unbuckled before the light turned off, stretched their arms, collected overstuffed bags, hurried toward the gate. But Marcus Reed didn't move with them. He stayed still, letting the human traffic pass him like a river around a rock. When the space cleared, he stepped forward, quiet, composed, carrying only the backpack that had been with him since long before his first million, the air inside. Chicago O'Hare Gate C-14 buzzed with the familiar mix of airport exhaustion and impatience. Business travelers scanned monitors. Vacationers herded kids. Gate agents typed with robotic speed. No one noticed the small storm gathering near the center. Not yet. As Marcus reached the end of the jet bridge, a figure stepped into view. Carla Lopez, coup of Vertex Dynamics, stood waiting, hair tied back, dark suit pressed, eyes sharp. 2 attorneys in black suits flanked her like sentinels. Carla didn't smile. She didn't need to. "Everything is in motion," she said softly. Marcus nodded. "Good." Behind them, someone yelled, "Mr. Hale! Mr. Hale, you need to see this." The voice came from a man in a rumpled suit, running toward the gate like the floor was on fire. It was Ryan Cutter, regional director for Horizon Airlines. Sweat clung to his forehead. His phone vibrated nonstop. His eyes darted between Carla, Marcus, and the legal team with a rising sense of dread. He stopped in front of Marcus, nearly gasping for breath. "Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, sir, please, there must be some misunderstanding. We just received a notice from your legal team about terminating the contract." Marcus didn't even turn toward him. His eyes stayed on the exit beyond the gate. "There is no misunderstanding," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't raised. It was calm, the kind of calm that ends careers. Ryan's shoulders sagged. "Please, we can fix this. We can review the situation," Marcus cut him off. "No." That single syllable hit harder than a shout. Ryan swallowed hard, pulling at his collar. "Mr. Reed, this partnership is critical for Horizon. We can't lose this. I'm asking you to reconsider. Just talk to Captain Hart. Talk to the crew." Marcus's gaze sharpened for the first time. "I watched the crew," he said. "I watched who they listened to, who they believed, who they dismissed. I don't need to hear excuses." Ryan opened his mouth again, but before he could speak, another cluster of figures appeared at the gate. Captain Douglas's heart rolled, suitcase with the confidence of a man who thought he had handled a minor inconvenience aboard a routine flight. His uniform was crisp, his posture straight, his face relaxed. He looked like someone who believed the problem had ended the moment the passenger in the hoodie moved back to 2A. Beside him was Jenna Collins, still composed, hands clasped behind her back as if ready for praise. And behind them, slowly walking with the grace of someone certain of her superiority, came Victoria Hale. Her heels clicked. Her hair bounced. Her expression already showed irritation. She disliked waiting for anything, especially for an airline she believed she practically owned. They approached the small circle, around Marcus and Carla. Captain Hart spoke first. "What's going on here?" No one answered him, because something else happened. The moment Jenna saw Marcus standing there between 2 attorneys and a coup, her eyes widened. Her breath caught. A faint tremor ran through her hands. Her mind raced backwards, seat 1A. Her voice urging him to move, the captain's threat, Victoria's entitlement. Then it raced forward to the man now standing with a corporate entourage. She didn't know exactly who Marcus was, but she knew this. She had made a terrible mistake. Captain Hart stepped closer, frowning. "Sir, is there a problem?" Marcus finally turned his head. "Yes," he said quietly. "Several." The tension around gate C-14 thickened. Passengers slowed down. Some stopped pretending not to listen. Ryan quickly leaned in. "Captain, this is Marcus Reed." Hart blinked, unimpressed. And Ryan continued, voice cracking. "He is the CEO of Vertex Dynamics." Hart's expression shifted as the weight of the name hit him. Vertex. The tech titan every major airline was fighting to partner with, he swallowed. A beat of silence passed. Marcus stepped forward. "I am Marcus Reed," he said, "and I was sitting in seat 1A this morning." Jenna flinched. Victoria blinked slowly, confused at first, then concerned as she sensed the shift. Marcus's voice remained even, measured. "I boarded quietly. I followed every rule. I paid for my ticket. And your staff chose to treat me as if I didn't belong." He looked at the captain. "You threatened to remove me from the aircraft to make room for someone." Louder, he turned to Jenna. "You ignored what was printed on the boarding pass and sided with a familiar face instead of a factual one." And then his gaze moved to Victoria. "And you?" Victoria stiffened, trying to regain her confidence. "Yes. You assumed your comfort mattered more than another human being's dignity." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Marcus continued. Horizon didn't fail because of a seat issue. You failed because your culture rewards arrogance and punishes humility. Ryan's breathing quickened. Mr. Reed, please just give us a chance to. Marcus cut him off with a raised hand. The partnership is terminated. Captain Hart stepped forward, desperation creeping into his voice. Mr. Reed. I want to personally apologize if no, Marcus said. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to close the door. Behind them, 3 gate agents froze as a new sound filled the terminal. The rapid, ping, ping of notifications. People nearby pulled out their phones. Others already had them in hand. Ryan's phone lit up too, and when he unlocked it, his face drained of color. A video was going viral. So viral that the app practically shoved it onto every screen. The caption read, Horizon Airlines kicked a man out of 1A for a louder VIP. Watch what happens. The video showed everything. The argument. The captain's threat. Victoria's impatience. Jenna's smile tightening into bias. Marcus being pushed to 2A. Passengers all around them began whispering. A few gasped. A handful already recognized Marcus from tech magazines, Forbes lists, business panels. Within seconds, the video hit 30,000 views. Within a minute, 100,000. Victoria stepped back, horror spreading across her face. Jenna's knees nearly buckled. Captain Hart's jaw clenched as if bracing for impact. Ryan looked like he was about to faint. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. This, he said, nodding toward the flood of notifications, is your real wake-up call. Not me? He turned to leave. Carla and the attorneys followed, before walking away completely. Marcus paused and spoke one last sentence. Soft, precise, devastating. Dignity is not optional. Your airline treated it that way. And now you can watch the cost. Then he walked into the terminal crowd with the same quiet step he had used boarding the plane, except now. Every step shook Horizon Airlines at its core. While Marcus Reed walked into the busy terminal like a man stepping out of a quiet storm, the real storm began somewhere else. Side phones, feeds, group chats, in boardrooms all across the country. The first crack hit 3 minutes after he left gate C14. By then, the viral video posted by tech blogger Ethan Miles had exploded past 250,000 views. Most videos climb slowly. This one didn't. The algorithm saw outrage, injustice. A wealthy airline humiliating a quiet passenger, and it lit the match. Within 10 minutes, the clip hit 1 million views. By the time Marcus reached the airport escalator, it had crossed 3 million. The video that broke the INTE, Arnatipo. You didn't just watch the video, they dissected it. Users paused at the moment Captain Hart leaned over and threatened Marcus. They replayed the instant Victoria Hale demanded, move him. I always sit in 1A. They analyzed Jenna's forced smile, her tone, her deference to Victoria, her disregard for Marcus's boarding pass, and then someone added the text overlay. The man they kicked out of 1A was the CEO of the company they needed for a $50 million partnership. That was the accelerant. That was the moment the entire country went, wait, what? The comments poured in, Horizon Airlines is done. Captains should be grounded. Permanently. Imagine losing $50 million. Because you can't treat people with basic respect. Is what happens when entitlement runs an airline. Hashtags took off like wildfire. Hashtag Horizon Humiliation. Hashtag 1ADOESNT. Defined people. Hashtag Marcus Reed deserved better. And worst of all, for Horizon. Hashtag Boycott Horizon Airlines. It happened so fast that employees back at Horizon headquarters couldn't understand why their inboxes were filling with fire alarms. Not yet. Inside Horizon headquarters, Chaos IGNite, ESN, a sleek office tower in downtown Chicago. Horizon CEO Michael Harrington was sitting in a strategy meeting when the first alert hit his phone. The subject line screamed, Urgent, termination notice from Vertex DINIMCES. Harrington frowned. Termination? Impossible. We're signing with them this week. He opened the email. Read the first sentence. And froze. Effective immediately. Ethical misalignment. Passenger discrimination incident. Witnessed by Vertex CEO, his hands began to shake. Who? Who was on that flight? He whispered. A younger analyst, already pale, showed him a tablet with the viral video paused at Marcus's face. Sir, he said quietly. That's him. Harrington felt his throat close. The room spun. He gripped the table edge. No, this can't be happening. But it was. And it wasn't stopping. The stock Ikeda Horizon's stock price dropped 4% in the first hour. Then 7%, then 9% investors called nonstop. Board members demanded emergency meetings. Insurance partners wanted statements. The press emailed for comments. A crisis manager screamed across the room, "Who is the captain on that flight? Who is the passenger they targeted?" Someone else shouted back, "Marcus Reed," and the entire room sank into stunned silence. The Halo family Meanwhile, in a gated neighborhood outside Chicago, Victoria Hale stepped into her marble-floored home. Expecting a quiet afternoon, instead, she found her husband, Daniel Hale, pacing aggressively in the living room, tie loosened. Face red with fury. "What the hell did you do on that flight?" he snapped. Victoria blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "I handled the situation, that's all." Daniel threw his phone on the table. The screen showed the viral video, her face, her voice, her commands. "You didn't handle anything," he said, voice cracking. "You just cost my company $12 million. She backed up a step. Daniel, I didn't know that man you humiliated," Daniel said, pointing at the screen, "is the CEO of Vertex Dynamics. The deal is dead. We're screwed." Victoria's legs weakened beneath her. She grabbed the edge of the kitchen island to steady herself. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I didn't know he was Daniel." Cut her off. "That's the problem. You don't treat people well unless they look powerful." She sank into a stool, face in her hands, shaking. For the first time in her life, her privilege didn't shield her. It exposed her. The crew feels the ground. Sack owls were in Chicago. Jenna Collins sat in her car in the employee parking lot staring at her phone, replaying the video. Her own voice echoed back at her, her own dismissive tone, her smile, her assumptions. A new email popped up from HR, urgent, immediate suspension, pending review. Jenna's breath dropped out of her lungs. Her chest tightened. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and exhaled a broken breath. She had dreamed of flying since she was 14. She had worked overtime, holidays, weekends. Now, single day, one seat, one decision, one moment of weakness, had shattered everything she built. Not because of bad luck, because of her choices. At the same time, Captain Hart sat in his office, fists clenched on the desk as his supervisor read from a printed notice, "Captain Hart. Due to the events captured on video and the ongoing investigation, you are removed from active flight duty effective immediately." And Hart exploded. "I followed procedure. I handled the situation." The supervisor stared at him. "You handled it poorly, and publicly, and disrespectfully." Words hit him harder than turbulence ever had. The world takes a side-heel line. Marcus Reed became a symbol in real dash time, not a hero. Not an influencer, not a public figure seeking applause, but a quiet reminder of dignity, people wrote. He didn't shout. He didn't fight. He just moved. And his silence changed everything. This is what grace looks like. Imagine being so powerful you don't need to raise your voice. Airlines around the world issued statements assuring customers they do not tolerate discrimination. Some trained staff overnight. Some quietly rewrote procedures. One small event in Seat 1A had exposed a global pressure point back in Seattle. Marcus returns home. Meanwhile, Marcus walked through the streets of Seattle with his backpack slung over one shoulder. He moved slowly, breathing in the cool air as the city lights flickered against the glass towers around him. He wasn't thinking about the uproar he caused. He wasn't thinking about Horizon's downfall. He wasn't thinking about becoming a symbol online. He was thinking about something simpler. How small moments invisible to most people, could reveal the true character of giant systems. Carla walked beside him, phone buzzing nonstop. You know, she said softly, the entire country's talking about you. Marcus shook his head. They're talking about a seat, he replied. I simply held it. And then he added, if this forces companies to treat people better, even for a week, it was worth it. Carla studied him for a moment. You really don't care about the noise, do you? Marcus gave a faint smile. No noise ever changed my life. Only choices did. He walked into the Vertex building with steady steps. Inside his office, sunlight slid across the floor as if welcoming him home. He placed his backpack on the table, sat down and exhaled deeply. The storm outside grew louder. The world shouted. Corporations panicked. Airlines rewrote rules. Marcus closed his eyes. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't vengeful. He was calm because he had simply done what he had always done, hold his place. With dignity. The next morning, the sky over Seattle hung low and gray. But Vertex Dynamics headquarters felt strangely calm. No reporters crowded the entrance. No podiums. No rehearsed speeches. Inside, however, the air carried a different charge, the weight of knowing the world was watching in the executive conference room. Screens showed what Marcus already expected, Horizon's stock line dropping like someone had cut a rope. News headlines rotating fast. Airline loses $50 million. Deal after first-class discrimination incident. Quiet passenger in hoodie turns out to be CEO. Horizon faces backlash over viral video. Carla clicked through charts and updates, her voice steady. They're calling every 30 minutes, she said. PR firms, lawyers, Horizon's board, their CEO, even lobbyists. Everyone wants to talk. Marcus sat at the head of the table, hands folded. Are we responding? He asked. Only with one sentence, she replied, tapping the screen to show the prepared line. Vertex. Dynamics does not partner with organizations that compromise human dignity. Marcus nodded once. Good. He didn't want a drama script. He wanted a boundary clear, simple, unshakable across the country. Horizon's leadership wasn't nearly as composed. Horizon, a company in Free, FALO, Horizon's Chicago headquarters. The emergency board meeting looked less like a strategy session and more like a televised meltdown. Charts showed the damage. Millions wiped from market value. Thousands of angry emails. Canceled bookings. Corporate clients pausing negotiations. CEO Michael Harrington stood at the front, tie crooked, voice raw. We cannot afford to lose this contract, he said. We cannot afford this kind of narrative. A board member responded dryly. You already lost it. And you didn't lose a narrative. You earned it. Silence slid across the room like ice. Another director spoke up. This isn't just a bad headline. This exposed something rotten in how we treat customers. This is systemic. Chief HR officer shuffled in her chair. Captain Hart and Miss Collins are under investigation. We've suspended them, along with the gate agents. And the passenger. A board member asked Reed. Harrington closed his eyes for a moment. We've sent an apology email, he said. No response yet. One of the younger executives, scrolling on his phone, interrupted. He probably doesn't care about an email, he said. He watched us show him exactly who we are. Why would he believe a statement now? Every person in that room knew the unspoken truth. They were not facing a PR crisis. They were facing a character crisis. The people closest to the BLAist chaos wasn't limited to offices and stock ticks in her apartment in Phoenix. Jenna Collins sat on her couch still wearing her uniform pants. Staring at her suspension email, the TV replayed clips of the video on mute. Her own face appeared over and over, expression composed, eyes cold. She whispered to herself, I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was just trying to keep the flight on time. But even as she said it, she knew that wasn't the full truth. She hadn't followed policy. She had followed comfort. She hadn't looked at what was printed on the ticket. She had looked at who looked powerful. Those small choices, once invisible even to her, now stood out like neon signs. Her mother called. Sweetheart, are you okay? Jenna swallowed. I messed up, Mom. Everyone makes mistakes, her mother said gently. This one went everywhere, Jenna replied. And the worst part is, I didn't even realize how wrong it was till I saw myself on video, in a small house in Oregon. Captain Douglas Hart sat at a kitchen table, his wings badge lying next to a mug of cold coffee. He had dedicated his life to flying planes safely through storms, turbulence, mechanical issues. But this was a collision with something he had ignored too long, his own blind spots. His wife tried to comfort him. You weren't the only one responsible, she said. He stared at the badge. I'm the one who threatened to remove him, he answered quietly. Just to make someone else happy. That's on me. For the first time in his career, he wasn't thinking about checklists and instruments. He was thinking about dignity, about power, about the way a uniform can make you forget that every order still has a moral cost. Marcus chooses. A different FIGHD back in Seattle. Carla slid a folder in front of Marcus. This is all about Horizon, she said. Media angles. Interview requests. Editorials asking for your commentary. You're officially the center of a corporate ethics storm. Marcus didn't even open it. I don't want to spend the next 6 months talking about an airline, he said. Carla raised an eyebrow. Then what do you want to talk about? Marcus looked out the window, at the city and the sky beyond it. When I was 19, he said slowly, I almost dropped out of school. Carla leaned on the back of a chair. Listening. I was working nights, sending half my money home, he continued. A professor pulled me aside and said, you should be building systems, not cleaning under them. He found a scholarship. Didn't fix everything, but it gave me just enough breathing room to keep going. He turned back to Carla. We're getting all this attention now, he said. Anger, praise, arguments. I don't want it to stop at outrage. I want it to build something. What are you thinking? She asked to fund, he said. For students who look like the person everyone assumes doesn't belong in 1A. Tech, engineering, cybersecurity. The kids no one expects to own anything. Carla's lips curved into a slow, genuine smile. You want to turn a first-class humiliation into first chances for them? She said. Exactly, Marcus replied. If the world wants a story, let's give it one that ends somewhere better than a broken airline. Carla opened her laptop on the spot. What do we call it? She asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. The Runway Initiative, he said. Because some people just need enough help to get off the ground.
How do you feel?
Within 48 hours. Vertex's legal and finance teams had the framework ready. A. Yearly fund for underrepresented students in tech and aviation-related fields. Mentorship from Vertex engineers and leaders. Internships with real responsibility, not just coffee runs and slide formatting. The press expected Marcus to go on television and talk about Horizon's failures. Instead, his team issued a simple statement. We've chosen to focus on the future instead of repeating the past. Vertex Dynamics is launching the Runway Initiative to support young people who are often overlooked but fully capable of leading our next generation of innovation. Reporters were confused at first. Then intrigued, articles began to appear, from humiliation in first class to scholarships for others. Marcus Reed turns viral discrimination into opportunity for once. The headlines weren't just about collapse. They were about rebuilding something different. A letter from the RUINS days later. On a quiet, misty Seattle morning, Marcus walked into his office to find a single white envelope on his desk. No logo. No corporate branding. Just his name, written in neat black ink, to Mr. Reed. He opened it. Inside, a handwritten letter. My name is Anna McKenzie, and as of last week, I am the new CEO of Horizon Airlines. I am not writing to convince you to restore the contract. That door is closed, and we deserve to lose it. I am writing to say thank you. Because of what happened on Flight 482, we were forced to look directly at what we'd been ignoring for years. Not just one crew, not just one passenger, but the way we taught our people to choose status over fairness. Marcus read each line slowly. There was no corporate spin. No if anyone was offended. No attempt to soften the blow. The last lines caught his attention. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. Not to negotiate. to listen. He stood there for a long moment, letter in hand. Carla knocked lightly on the open door. "What is it?" she asked. "An invitation," Marcus said. "From Horizon's new CEO? Are we interested?" Marcus folded the letter. "I'm not interested in saving their image," he replied. "I am interested in what people do after they hit the bottom." He looked toward the window, where clouds hovered low over the city like a ceiling closing in. "Set it up," said. "If Horizon truly wanted to change, they wouldn't do it with a press release. They would do it in rooms with no cameras, no microphones, and no place for lies to hide." And Marcus was willing to walk into one of those rooms, not as their partner, not as their enemy, but as something harder to be, a mirror. 3 days later, the rain over Seattle fell in thin silver curtains, the kind that muted the world just enough to make truth easier to hear. Marcus Reed stood outside the Gray Line Hotel, a quiet boutique place tucked between two glass towers. No reporters, no PR teams, no staged backdrops, just a simple doorway and a company trying to start over. Carla walked beside him, hands tucked into her coat pockets. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "People don't change when they're comfortable," he said. "Only when they're honest." They stepped inside. A hotel associate guided them to a private meeting room, small. It was quiet, warm lighting, no distractions. Inside stood Horizon's new leadership team. No flashy suits, no fake smiles, just weary faces ready to face whatever came next. At the center was Anna McKenzie, the newly installed CEO in her early 50s. Her hair was pulled back, her posture straight, her expression sincere. She extended her hand. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming." Marcus shook it. "Thank you for inviting us." Carla settled next to him. Across the table sat Priya Nandan, head of HR Lucas Grant, Co Helen Wheeler, legal counsel Miguel Santos, director of customer experience, not the old guard, not the people who had created the culture, but the people called in to fix it. Anna began. "I won't waste your time," she said. "What happened on that flight was wrong, not by policy, not by interpretation, by basic human decency." She took a breath and continued, "We didn't bring you here to defend ourselves. Here to ask you something harder. How do we repair a culture that rewarded the wrong instincts for so long?" The room fell silent. Not tense, just attentive. Marcus leaned back, eyes scanning the team. First he said, "You have to stop pretending the problem was one flight attendant or one captain." Priya nodded, her pen hovering above her notebook. "Our internal review already shows patterns," she said quietly. "Patterns we ignored." Marcus continued, "The problem is that your system teaches people to value power over fairness, familiar faces over printed facts, comfort over courage." Lucas swallowed. "We see that now," he said. "And, frankly, it's embarrassing we didn't see it sooner." Miguel leaned forward. "What would you do if you were in our position?" Carla looked at Marcus. She knew. He didn't like giving instructions unless he believed in the transformation. Marcus's voice dropped into a calm, firm tone. "Empower your employees to say no, even to VIPs, especially to VIPs. Teach them that dignity is more important than hierarchy." Helen wrote word after word, nodding slowly. "And one more thing," Marcus added, looking around the table. "Stop treating courtesy as a currency only for the rich." Anna exhaled a long, heavy breath, the breath of someone waking up from a long sleep. "You're right," she said. "We lost our compass, and we're committed to rebuilding it." She didn't promise perfection. She promised change. For the first time since the incident, Marcus believed Horizon might actually pull it off. After more than an hour, the meeting closed. No contracts, no negotiations, just a simple, steady understanding. Horizon wanted to rebuild, and Marcus wasn't their partner. But he wasn't their enemy either. He was the lesson that pushed them into transformation. Months later, the airline that rose a Gia-Nit didn't happen in a week or a month. But step by step, Horizon rebuilt. Itself, they launched a new internal program called Respect First. They tore down their old VIP-centric protocols. They embedded VR empathy training across all staff, simulating what it feels like to be dismissed or profiled. They promoted ground staff who spoke up instead of those who stayed silent. At first, people mocked it online, and they respected it because the changes were real, not cosmetic. One viral clip showed a Horizon attendant calmly but firmly refusing service to a passenger berating a young staff member. "We don't tolerate disrespect," she said. "If you want to continue on this flight, adjust your tone." The clip reached 20 million views. Public opinion began to shift. The airline that once fell became the airline that rose with humility. Marcus returns to the SKY 6 months later. Marcus boarded a flight for Singapore for an ethics conference. Carla had booked the ticket. He hadn't noticed the airline name until he reached the gate. Horizon Airlines? He paused, smiling faintly. "Life loves symmetry," he murmured. When he walked into first class, he stopped. The cabin felt different. Not fancy, just warmer, simpler, grounded. On the wall near the galley, a small plaque read, "Respect first, because every journey starts with dignity." Marcus touched the plaque gently, from nostalgia, but from understanding when he sat. In seat 1A, a new head flight attendant approached, Maya Tran. Early 30s, steady eyes, kind smile. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," she said softly. "I'm Maya. I'm head of service for North America. I wanted to personally thank you." Marcus tilted his head. "For what?" "For forcing us to rebuild from the inside," she replied. "You helped thousands of employees find their voice." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. It was sincere. Marcus nodded, and it was worth it. As he settled back into 1A, a small boy from the row behind leaned forward, eyes wide with curiosity. His mother gently tugged at his arm. "Sweetheart, don't stare." "Mom," the boy whispered, "that's the man from my magazine." Turned with a smile. "Would you like to sit here for a moment?" The boy's mouth fell open. "I can." Marcus stood and gestured. "Odd." Of course, the boy climbed into 1A, his feet dangling. "Sir," he asked, "is this the seat for important people?" Marcus paused, looking out at the broad sky beyond the window. Then he answered softly, "No. This seat is only special when you use it to treat people with kindness. What makes you important is never where you sit. It's how you treat others." The boy nodded as if storing the words in his heart. His mother whispered, eyes moist, "Thank you." Marcus returned to 1A, opened his old leather notebook, and wrote. This time, 1A wasn't a symbol of power. It was a place to remind the world who deserves respect. Everyone. As the plane lifted above the clouds, sunlight washed over his seat. For the first time since Flight 482, Marcus felt truly at peace, because this wasn't revenge. It was confirmation. People can change. Companies can change. Systems can change. And sometimes all it takes is one person holding their place. Quietly, firmly, with dignity. Singapore's late evening sky glowed gold as the sun dropped behind the towers. The city looked like it had been carved from light, clean, sharp, unwavering. Inside the massive International Ethics and Innovation Summit, the air hummed with anticipation. CEOs, policymakers, tech founders, academics, every important figure in modern industry filled the grand hall, and on every screen across the room, one name glowed in white letters: Marcus Reed, CEO, Vertex Dynamics keynote speaker, human. Dignity in the age of automation. Backstage, Marcus stood alone for a moment, hands resting lightly on the podium, notes he wouldn't use. He rarely used notes. Struth didn't need scripts. He took a slow breath. He didn't think of the viral video, didn't think of Horizon's collapse. He didn't think of 1A, or the humiliation, or the outrage. He thought of the kid on the plane, the one who asked if important people sit in 1A. That moment mattered more to Marcus than any headline ever could. A stage manager whispered, "Mr. Reed, we're ready for you." Marcus walked into the bright white light. The applause rolled like a wave, warm, unforced, genuine, but he didn't bow. He didn't soak it in, simply waited until it ended. Then he began with a quiet sentence that stilled the entire hall. I'm not here to tell you how badly I was treated. I'm here to tell you what that moment taught the world. The room went silent. Every eye fixed on him, he continued. 6 months ago, I boarded a plane wearing a hoodie. Not a suit, not a badge, not power. I walked in as just a man trying to get from one place to another, and that was enough to expose a system. A ripple of emotion moved across the listeners. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The airline didn't fail because of one seat, he said. It failed because people forgot how to treat each other when nobody is watching, letting the weight settle. We live in a world obsessed with status. Titles, wealth, appearances, followers, seats. We use these symbols to decide who deserves kindness, who deserves patience, who deserves respect. He shook his head slightly. But symbols never tell the truth about a person. Actions do. The crowd leaned closer. And the truth that morning, Marcus continued, was not about me. It was about how fragile a system becomes when dignity is optional. A low murmur of agreement swept through the audience. Marcus moved on. When the video went viral, people called me powerful. But my real power wasn't in canceling a contract or trending online. My real power was staying calm, sitting in my seat, and letting the world decide what it wanted to be. Executives in the front row nodded slowly, visibly moved. Marcus smiled softly, almost regretfully. Outrage can shake the world, but only honesty can change it. He lifted his gaze across the hall, and change did happen. It's not because a CEO was wronged, but because a company finally listened to its own reflection. Horizon Airlines' new CEO, Anna McKenzie, sat in the audience. She didn't hide. She didn't lower her head. She listened. Marcus continued. Horizon didn't rise again because of PR. They rose because they were willing to tear down their old system and rebuild the parts that had gotten lost. Respect became their policy, not a marketing slogan. Paused. And that, he said quietly, should not be rare. Another hush settled across the hall. Marcus stepped away from the podium and let the light soften around him. We build machines that learn, he said. But we forget to teach people how to remember. A breath. Remember who they are. Remember what dignity looks like. Remember that every system, from airlines to tech companies to entire governments, is only as strong as how it treats. The people it thinks don't matter. Then his closing line came like a gentle wind, soft, but so unmistakably powerful that the entire hall rose to its feet. My greatest power that day wasn't the ability to end a partnership. It was the ability to sit quietly in seat 1A and let the truth reveal itself. The applause didn't explode. It rose like something lifted, like something healed, like something finally understood. People stood hundreds, then thousands clapping long after the lights dimmed. But Marcus didn't bow. He didn't look proud. He looked thoughtful, grounded, because change wasn't about him. It was about what people would choose to do next. Later that night, the last unnoted Marcus returned to his hotel, the city lights reflecting across the glass like constellations. He opened the balcony door and let the warm Singapore air wash over him. He sat with his old leather notebook, the one he'd carried since before Vertex. Before success, before anyone knew his name. He wrote slowly, carefully, deliberately. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits in a seat quietly and refuses to move from who it is. He closed the notebook, closed the balcony door, closed the chapter. Tomorrow, he would fly again. No cameras. No headlines. No drama, just a man with a backpack walking into the sky. And wherever he sat, 1A or not, the world would remember the lesson he left behind. Dignity isn't a privilege. It's the foundation everything else stands on.